Hello, everybody. If you're signing in, we're going to take just about a half a minute to allow others to sign in and join. Welcome to the Molding Graphics Polyfuse webinar series. We're just going to allow a little bit of time for others to join in before we start. Thank you for joining us today. Again, if you're just joining us, please stand by. We're just going to allow a few more seconds for people to join us, and then we'll get started. Okay, I wanted to wish everybody good morning and welcome to the Molding Graphics Polyfuse Graphics webinar series. My name is Marty Matas. I'll be your moderator today. And your host today is Jason Brownell, who's a 30-year veteran in this area. He's a subject matter expert. And joining Jason is Gene Ironhill from Mass Group, who is a subject matter expert on the topic of RFID software. So Gene and Jason would love to answer your questions. So if you have any questions, please add them to the comment section. These are questions related to RFID or RFID software or related topics. I know that Jason and Gene are looking forward to answering your questions. So without further delay, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Jason Brownell to start the webinar.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marty. Really appreciate it, and appreciate you, moderating and looking at the chat as well. So, excuse me, real quick before we bring Miss Jean in, I kind of want to go over polymer fusion and what it is. So, polyethylene, polypropylene, the whole polyolefin family of plastics can certainly be a challenge to try to label, and there's a few reasons for that, and I just wanted to go over it. This is just kind of review for anybody who's joined the first two webinars, but I do think it's important, and for those that are new to this third one, I want to make sure that they understand some of the challenges. Polyethylene, polypropylene, the whole polyolefin family of plastics is a challenge to try to label with adhesive technologies, just primarily because of the low surface energy characteristics of it. In fact, it's very similar to Teflon, and we use Teflon to coat molds. We use Teflon to coat our cookware so that nothing sticks to it. And typically it is, or one way to measure surface energy is dynes per centimeter. And again, if you look at polyethylene, polypropylene, they're down there around Teflon. And so that can be a real challenge for adhesive technologies. Also, when you look at plastic components, especially ones that are in an outdoor environment, they're constantly expanding and contracting. And I always use the analogy, and sorry if you've already heard this, but it's kind of like putting an adhesive bandage over your knuckle. It's fine as long as you keep everything flat, but as soon as you start flexing it, it has a tendency to want to come off or delaminate. So again, that expansion and contraction is certainly a challenge. And then lastly, olefinic materials have a lot of outgassing, just due to the process and the materials themselves. So if you've ever seen like a pressure sensitive adhesive sticker that has bubbles and blisters, a lot of times that's caused by the outgassing. So people come to us for a lot of different reasons. Of course, branding is certainly one of them. And we do have other technologies as well as like antimicrobial and things like that, and anti-counterfeiting. But we're really focusing this series on track and traceability. And as Marty mentioned, we do have Gene Ironhill from Mass Group. I'll be bringing her on shortly. So looking at tracking and tracing, we can certainly do barcodes, and in this particular case that you're looking at, not only is it a barcode, but there's other text as well, and a logo too. But what we have developed and seen a real need for in the plastics industry is a fusible RFID. Now, what I mean by fusible, everything that we do here at Molding Graphics and Polyfuse is we are creating a label that is plastic. And through different methods of heat, we are actually fusing them together with the base plastic itself. And that's what you're looking at here is this is not adhered, it's actually melted into the surface of that plastic. Okay, so I want to make sure everybody kind of understands that we're not adhering, we're actually fusing together, which is where that whole polymer fusion idea comes from. Um, this just real quick is some contact information. um, you can certainly jot this down. This will be available to watch later and to be able to replay that. But that's our contact information. So thank you for that. Now, without further ado, I would like to bring Jean Ironhill from Mass Group in. Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. I know that you're a subject matter expert when it comes to the software piece of the puzzle. And for those that are just joining this series, you know, we started with just a general overview of track and trace. We talked about RFIDs. Then in the second series, we moved on to the hardware component. And Jean, thank you so much for joining us on the software piece of the puzzle. So can you tell us a little bit about, Mass Group and kind of the culture and the history and all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. So, Mass Group started off as a reseller for software for SCADA and moved into the development of software to be able to track items such as assets, inventory, maintenance, manufacturing execution systems, etc. Mass Group was born, as you will, in 1998. So we have over a 25-year history of delivering commercial off-the-shelf software. And it was built from the ground up as 100% cloud-based, meaning it's in the web. So you access it with any modern web browser. And we provide the full range of services with the software. So implementation, tech support, training, we can host as well. We have a
Gotcha.
lot of references across many verticals, 1,000 companies, Fortune 1,000, the government, semiconductor and electronics, aerospace and automotive, government, as well as others. So if you have something that needs to be tracked, we can track it for you. And so one of the highlights of our software system is not only just being able to track with RFID, but it adds a whole lot more. So if your assets need to have PMs or calibrations, that can all be done with one system.
Gotcha.
Yep. And so here is an example of some of the different things that we provide. So in the top left corner, manufacturing execution system, that's where you have the data collection and the step-by-step processes for taking raw material and turning it into finished goods. Where RFID comes into play is being able to track those items as they move through the process and have a really good understanding of what you have where in all of your operations. And then, of course, inventory and warehouse management systems, where Polyfuse comes in with the plastics. We're talking a lot about palletization and containers. So with our software, you can track as those pallets and containers are loaded and unloaded. So you know what you have where, not just that a tag was scanned or that a pallet exists, but what's actually inside it. Quality management systems, computerized maintenance management systems, so that you can have the added value of being able to track your maintenance. You can even track the maintenance on the pallets themselves. Enterprise asset management systems, that's where we talk about tracking pieces of equipment, IT solutions, laptops, anything that has a fixed value over a length of time. And then, of course, the Internet of Things, RFID and barcode tracking system. So when we talk about RFID, we also include barcode on that. Jason had shown an example where the barcode was on there. So with our software, which is called Traceability Made Easy, TME for short, you can actually use a mobile device with a camera to scan the barcode if you don't have an RFID handheld device readily available. So
Well,
it's all connected.
that certainly sounds, convenient from, say, like shop floor kind of environment, anybody can, utilize their smartphone or what have you.
We have clients who are hospitals, so they're tracking the medical devices. Those are
Sure.
critical pieces of equipment that you need to know where they are. We have clients that are educational facilities, so they're tracking their laptops across the campuses, across entire states. So, there's a whole variety of uses for RFID beyond just a factory floor. But any type of organization that has a lot of different things that they need to track. And
For sure.
RFID, yeah, and RFID, you can automate the tracking. So you have fixed readers in the ceilings, on the doors, or you can have handheld devices for cycle counts. Here's an example of the RFID network put together. So TME, Traceability Made Easy, is on a server, whether we host in the cloud or it's on premise. Perhaps you have high security and you can't have an outside system. We can install either way. And then the readers are on a network throughout the organization at the different choke points that enable zoning or entrances and exits so that you know when something leaves. And then the antennas are connected to the readers. The antennas are what make the RFID tags announce themselves. So they send out power and signals, and the RFID tag announces, I'm tag number 123467889. And the reader will then send that information to TME, which translate it to this is laptop 365, or this is pallet 9259, which contains 50 of our products. So all those things work together so that you can have, once again, a good understanding of what you have and where. And in addition, in the bottom right corner, you can see a pat light with Audible. We have the ability to send alerts based on something crossing a certain choke point. So it reaches a certain antenna at a given location. All of this is configurable within our software. So you don't have to have IT programming or scripting anything. It's all within the user interface. Now, IT is involved because there is installation of software, there's installation of hardware, et cetera.
For sure. Well, and that's just it. It's like, okay, you have the tag, great, and you have the scanner, great. What do you do with that information? Like, how do you get that into an ERP system? And that's, certainly where the software piece of it comes in, which is why this has been a 3-part series. So, again, this is great information. Let's talk just a little bit, about the look and the feel of the software. Kind of, what can a person expect?
Okay, so as I mentioned, the user interface is very friendly. And so, this is an example of an item profile. And so this particular item is batched, so it would be loaded onto containers, and those containers would have the RFID tags. So if one container has 50 of these BRLs and another one has 100, you're tracking the pallets as they move, but you'll be able to see that you have 50 in zone A and 100 in zone B, simply because you move the pallets around and then you have antennas that capture the RFID signal and let TME know, okay, the location has changed. This pallet is now located in zone A. And so all that information is stored in our software. So we can store the batch numbers, we can store serial numbers, expiration dates. We can have the full warehouse cycle of receiving, purchasing, sales orders, transfer orders, pick lists, all of that in one system. And then RFID works beautifully to add an extra layer of automation, an extra layer of ease to be able to do a cycle count. And so all these things come into play, and we make it easy. Here's the full workhouse flow to be able to say, okay, I need to handle more than just where are tags. I need to receive my items. And at that point, the RFID and barcode labels are associated to the items that are being received. So the pallets are loaded, or an RFID tag can be put on a box of items that come in. There's put away, There's knowing the on-hand quantity of your items anywhere they go, being able to transfer, track the request of someone saying, hey, I need 50 of these BRLs, can you get them to me? All that's handled in the system, and so you have complete records of what's going on. Being able to show the shipment of those items and then receiving them at the new locations, and then saying, hey, my inventory is low, I got to purchase more. Now, TME is not a full ERP system, but it is the software that handles all of the details that the ERP systems generally don't. ERP systems generally aren't involved in the where is everything at any given time in real time. And that's where we come in. And then we also have the capability to integrate with third-party systems and ERPs. So, when a shipment goes out to a customer, we can update the ERP. When a material is received, we can update the ERP. ERPs can send us the purchase orders. So all of that works together.
That is
And
awesome. Just real quick, I was just going to mention, I was talking to somebody at a trade show, and they were talking about inventory control and what a difference RFID made to their organization and what a cost savings it was when you look at over the course of a year, because rather than somebody having to go manually count everything, they were just able to scan it quickly, and they actually would come in off hours to do the inventory counts, and now a person could walk through the warehouse and just instantly have the information at their fingertips. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that as far as the workflow is concerned.
Right, and they can do that because they can do a cycle count. And you really need to have software to be able to say, okay, I'm scanning everything. And the scanning can be with a simple device like this,
Sure.
which is a presentation RFID device. It also does barcodes. There's other types of scanners that work with mobile devices, but with our cycle count, you scan the items and then you can see immediately on screen, I'm missing certain things that TME says I should have in this location. And so it provides the ability to easily go, okay, let me look, pull some boxes away, and or maybe it's over in another area kind of situation, but you find things quickly and easily without having to go through Excel spreadsheets or trying to figure things out. And the great thing about RFID is you pull the trigger and it captures all of the tags, because the tags are announcing as soon as they're energized by the device. And you're not looking for barcodes and trying to orient the device and scan a barcode, et cetera, or writing in Excel, I have this widget and I have 50 and I'm in this location. So it does save a ton of time. It also not only saves time when you do an inventory, it provides the ability for people to say, okay, instead of doing it once a year, let's do it 3 times a year, 4 times a year, and be able to really maintain more accurate accountability of what's going on in the warehouse.
Absolutely. So this is kind of your contact information. Please, as a guest of this webinar, if you have any questions or any follow-up questions that you want to ask, please reach out to them. They certainly are the experts. You talked a little bit about implementation earlier. And can you tell me the different types of personas that you work with within an organization during a typical installation?
Absolutely. So first contact is usually with the end user, the person who has a problem that they need to solve.
Okay.
I need to be able to find things quickly. We need to track tools. Tools is a great example. You have small tools and that you have a 30,000 square foot area by which someone can grab a tool and then leave it somewhere. So being able to quickly find, because you know the tag number, you just look in the software and say, okay, what's the tag number? Punch it in and then go looking for it with a handheld device. And as you get closer, you get an indicator saying you're within range. Or just simply having the fixed readers throughout, it automatically tracks as the tool moves around the factory. So instead of looking all over the place, you can hone in one area. If you use check in, check out with our software, and even if it's individual self-checking out, you know who the person was that last had it.
Sure.
So all those things come into play. So it's usually somebody who has the problem that we work with first. And then we talk about what can RFID do for the organization? What is the problem that they're trying to solve? What are the items that they're trying to track? And then we talk about, okay, do you need fixed readers? Do you only need handheld readers? Are you just looking to speed up your cycle counts? What are they trying to accomplish? So we work with them on that. And then we talk about, okay, here's what our software can do. Here's the different type of hardware that's out there. And we work with them on that. So we don't say, here's our software, now go find the tags that you want to use, go find the hardware. We work with them on that. And we have partners throughout the industry, including Polyfuse. And so we provide all of that with our implementation with a project manager to help guide and go through the whole process. And that includes training. How do we use the software? How do we apply the tags? If they're not being handled by Polyfuse, you're not going to necessarily fuse a tag onto a laptop. What's the best placement for that? What are the best types of tags? There's hundreds of different styles and sizes and read ranges and everything of that nature. There's different hardware for the fixed readers, different types of hardware for the hand scanner. So we work with our clients on all of that. And then we also work with IT because, as I mentioned, it is software. If we host, then there's minimal IT involvement. But if it needs to be on premise, there's some installation. Okay. There's also a small component of hardware that needs to reside on the network because the readers have to talk to it. The placement of the readers, the placement of the antennas. So we'll be working with the facilities personnel. So it all comes together.
Gotcha. It's funny you were mentioning tools. I think I would like to implement RFID on my Allen wrenches at home because every single time I'm looking for the one that I need, it's not there, and I would love to be able to quickly find it. So,
depending on how small it is, that should not be an issue.
Right? Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about like brand new installations versus somebody that's kind of retrofitting legacy items and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So a new system where you're bringing new items in and they can be tagged as you're receiving, etc. That can be handled within the software very easily. For legacy situations where you have to go around and tag your items and associate them into the software, we handle that with some very simple Excel import sheets.
Okay, awesome.
Most organizations already have something in Excel or access databases, and so we can pull from that, or even other systems we can pull from those, bring them in, and then moving forward, do some basic receiving, etc. So it's easy to start. Implementation, depending on what it is you're trying to do, can be 30 to 45 days as far as the software is concerned. Hardware, installing the readers and antennas, that could take a little bit longer. But otherwise, it's not a difficult process once the decisions have been made. What am I trying to do? Do I want to do with fixed readers? Do I just want to do cycle counts? Do I just want to have handheld readers that scan things in? Once those guidelines are settled, the process is not difficult. It's very standard on how we do that. We install the software and we go. Our software is actually integrated with RFID so that there's nothing special that needs to be done. The software can reach out on the network and look for the antennas and the readers, and then you can configure what you need to do within our software, within our user interface. So we made it really easy, which is part of the name, traceability made easy, to get it done and implemented and working.
That's fantastic. I know a lot of people that I've talked with, whether it be, on the phone here or at different trade shows, a lot of people, they hear about RFID. They don't necessarily know how to move forward with it. They want it, they need it, but they don't know the steps. So certainly appreciate you joining and answering some of these software questions today. Um, Last question as we kind of wrap things up with Mass Group. Can you talk a little bit about the future of Mass Group, kind of what's going on right now? Anything coming down the road that we should know about?
Yeah, so what we're really excited about is we're working solidly on machine integration with our software. So what that means is being able to talk directly to pieces of equipment, whether it's the semiconductor industry, any type of manufacturing, and then being able to have start stops of the equipment, collecting data from the equipment. And how that works with RFID is as you move items through a work in process, material into finished goods, being able to track those as they move through the operations. So it reaches the machine and the machine recognizes, this is this set of items or this work order. I'm now going to use this recipe to take care of this step of the operation. So it makes the whole process much more automated. And so that is where we're really putting some focus on. And of course, standard improvements throughout.
Sure, that's great. Um, Kind of exciting times, it sounds like. Anything else that you want to add, or maybe that we didn't touch on? Otherwise, I'll bring Marty back and we can start fielding some questions.
Well, I just want to state that, it's really, really important when you think about RFID and you want to embark on that project to think about all of the different components. You have to think about the tags. You have to think about what hardware are you going to use, and then you have to think about the software because it all works together for a full turnkey solution that will solve your problem. So knowing that you're going to have to look at all three aspects and also have a really good understanding of what your problem is. What is it that you're trying to do? What is it that you're trying to track? The better the understanding of that, the better we can help you get there and be successful. Because we're not successful if our clients aren't successful. We have a 98% retention rate of our clients year to year because we strive not only to have successful implementations, but our tech support and service that we provide as part of the software subscription is something that we take great pride in ensuring that it is what our clients need.
That, that's fantastic, and that's great to hear. And one of the reasons why we're partnering up with you guys,
Yeah.
and so that's fantastic. Thank you for that. I'd like to go ahead and bring Marty back. Marty, I know you've been monitoring things. Marty, are you there?
I am. Jason and Jean, that was a really informative section, but we do have some follow-up questions for you.
Great.
Great.
We'll try to just go down the list here. This first one is, can the RFusion ID label be applied to rotational molded products? Maybe you could explain that, Jason, and talk about the difference between that and injection molding.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's basically two product offerings, one that is done in the mold and then one that is done as a post molding process. Now, when it comes to in mold, I want to certainly be clear that this is not something that would work in injection molding. Like, for example, with injection molding, that's going to be done as a post process. Thermoforming, blow molding, those are all going to be post molded processes. But for rotational molding, we certainly have a solution that can go into the mold. Now, I talked a little bit early on when I was going through the slide deck about we're not adhering to anything. We are fusing together with it. So in all the cases, we need to have heat. And in the case of injection molding, blow molding, and thermoforming, that heat is going to come from an external source, whether that be, some sort of, hot stamping type machine with a soft pad, even handheld stamping is available. But in the case of rotational molding, to get back to answer your question, the heat source in that particular case is from the process itself. So the RFusion ID will go into the mold and it will be on the mold wall. You will then pour in your resin, and then all of that goes into a hot oven so that you reach the melt temperature of the resin. Now, what's happening in there is not only are you reaching the melt temperature of the resin and creating a wall, but you're reaching the melt temperature of the polymer fusion RFID. And so, because again, they're both plastic, they are fusing together to become one piece of plastic. So absolutely, this can be done with rotational molding, and it can be done in the mold. It can also be done as a post process with rotational molding, but many people choose to, investigate doing it in the mold. So hopefully that answers
Excellent,
that
Jason. That's a
question.
great answer to that question. This next question might be a good one for Jean. The question is, can you please compare the efficiency rates of barcode scanning versus RFID scanning?
Sure. So when it comes to RFID scanning, you walk into a room and let's say you have 1,000 different items, 1,000 unique items, and they each have a tag. And you walk in the room, you open up the software on your mobile device, and it's set to a cycle count, and you pull the trigger, literally pull the trigger on the handheld device and walk around the room to capture all those signals. And you'll see on screen, it goes, and they're just popping up. And in TME, because TME knows what those items are, it then says, okay, we've counted those items, and it will show you on screen what's still missing. And it'll tell you not this tag is missing, but this item is missing. So you know what to look for. With barcoding, you have to actually scan each and every barcode. So you have to position the barcode so that it is in sight and visible. RFID, you don't have to do that. With the exception of certain things, you can't have RFID tags behind a metal door. The signal doesn't go through metal. So you open your cabinets. You wouldn't put it behind an aquarium. But you don't have to worry about in line of sight. And there are special tags to adhere to metal objects. But with the barcode, you have to make sure that you have it oriented so that you can have it where the scanner can actually read it. And then you have to scan each and every barcode. You can probably save 75% of your time easily incorporating RFID as opposed to just utilizing the barcode.
Excellent, Jean. I think a lot of us have seen going into, say, large retail stores, you can see sales associates walking around with scanners, and you see those efficiencies. And Jean, this next question might be related because it's asking, are there limits to what you can track and trace with RFID?
Well, there are limits with everything. And as I mentioned, if you have metal everywhere, you do have to take certain precautions with your RFID tag placement because you have to make sure that the signal reaches the antennas, whether it's a fixed antenna or a handheld. So as, for example, you're moving through a hallway with a piece of medical equipment and there's an antenna about here, you're not going to have the tag underneath all of the metal equipment if there's a lot of metal components. You're going to place the tag so that it is above, so that the antenna can easily reach it. So those are the things that we talk about as part of the implementation and the conversation on what is the best approach for utilizing RFID. And we talk about all those different things.
Excellent. Thank you, Jean.
You're welcome.
Jason, this next question, I've heard this asked about polymer fusion labels, but now it's related to the RFID. Can the polymer fusion RFID labels be made RoHS compliant?
Gotcha. Yeah, we certainly deal with all sorts of compliances. So yeah, that is certainly something we can take care of and look at that. And that's one of, like Jean was talking, implementation. There's all sorts of questions that she's going to ask to find a solution to fit their needs. And then, on our end, we do the same thing. We're going to want to know what the resin type is, what the part color is going to be, any compliances that may be at play. So absolutely.
Excellent. Couple more, if you will. I think you would address this one as part of the presentation, but the question is, can an RFID and barcode be made together in one label?
Yeah, from our perspective, absolutely. The current product offering, just so everybody's clear, it is a two-step process where in the case of injection molding, thermoforming, and blow molding, you would put the RFID down first, and then you would come over the top of that with any sort of barcode that a person would need. So yes, it can be done, and but again, it is current state. It's a two-step process. We are a company that is really founded on continuous improvement, and so we are in development to have a one-shot type tag, but current state it is two. But yes, it can absolutely be achieved.
And I
Excellent.
would add to that, we would always recommend having both, because you simply have situations where, you have a certain number of handheld scanners and somebody's looking for something, but doesn't have access to the scanner right away to go looking for it. That, you might want to have that barcode with a human readable on top of that, so that they can easily recognize, yes, this is what I'm looking for. So, we always say, as much as possible, incorporate the barcoding with the RFID, because we can associate all of that within our software for sure. And in fact, something that I do want to bring up is oftentimes certain objects might have multiple tags associated. For example, a large pallet where you've got polyfuse on the pallet, but perhaps it's such a large number of items that you also want to have some tags on top on the shrink wrap, so that no matter the orientation of the pallet as it's moving through the factory floor, it's going to get read by the antennas, whether it's read from the top, the bottom, etc. And so one of the nice things about our software is we've incorporated the fact that you can associate multiple different tag identities to a single object, whether it's a pallet, container, or a serialized inventory, or an asset, or even a person. That's something that you hear about nowadays, is being able to track visitor badges, having RFID on the visitor badges, so you know when someone is not where they're supposed to be, or if there's an emergency, you know that there are certain people still in the building and you can tell where they are. So those things come into play as well.
That's great.
Sure. It was funny. You were talking about RFID and tools. I'm curious, have you ever worked on a situation where you're putting an RFID on an RFID reader? Because it's like, I don't have access to the reader. I don't know where it is. I need to find it. Has that ever come up?
I have not run into that, but that is definitely something that I'll recommend to all of our clients. The thing about the handheld readers is, they do have docking stations for power. So generally people are pretty good about putting it back where it needs to be, or it's not going to be usable.
Sure.
And Gene, while you're addressing that question, Gene, one of our LinkedIn users commented that, and they wrote, quote, having both barcode and RFID is important for continuous tracking with your supply chain. So I think your answer did a really good job of addressing that.
Thank you. And it also goes beyond your own facility. If you send items out to another organization or facility that doesn't have RFID, then having the barcode readily available is great customer service on your own behalf.
Kind of a plan B, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And Gene, for anybody listening, whether they're in the audience now or listening to this later on, as we will be recording it and making it available, if there's somebody who's, say, a smaller outfit, they're interested in getting started. You talked a little bit earlier in your presentation about software being available in the cloud that Mass Group could even host. How would they get started? What would be the first step with contacting you, and the steps they could take to implement track and trace with RFID with Mass Group?
Yeah, first step is to contact us, whether it's via email, gironhill@massgroup.com, sales@massgroup.com, or you can even give us a call, 818-709-1255. And one of our representatives will get the message and reach out to you, or we'll be able to talk to you right on hand. We like email because we can generally capture a lot more information. So we would want to know, what problem are you trying to solve? Whether you're a small organization or a large organization, RFID is readily scalable. So, what we do sometimes is we start off with, okay, we'll have a fixed reader at all of the entrance and exit points. And maybe that's just 3 across the facility. And then it's, okay, this works great. I need a little more clarity. I need zoning. And so we'll determine what are the choke points. Where should we put additional readers and antennas? You don't have to add additional tags because it's the same number of objects, the same type of items. But we'll go through the whole process of what is it that you're trying to do and how can we best help you and solve that. And so, like I said, whether it's a small organization or a large organization, TME itself is very scalable. We can start with the basics. Let's just track the items across the floor. Oh, now you want to add, you know what? You provide the ability to do repairs and service on the equipment and to track work orders. Let's add that. So we'll work with you on the scale that you need in order for you to take care of what is your immediate problem. And then work from there.
Very good, Jean. As you were answering that, another question came in and it said, does Mass Group offer software for a proof of concept project? And perhaps you could provide an example.
Yes, so we can work with you on a proof of concept. So once again, reach out to us and we'll have a conversation on, once again, what is it that you're trying to do? What is the problem you're trying to solve? And how can we best help you with that? And yes, we've worked with the idea of proof of concept with many clients.
Outstanding. Jason, there is one more question. I purposely kind of saved this to the end because I know it's a really important topic right now, and it has to do with recycling. Can the polymer fusion RFID labels be recycled?
Absolutely, it can. It's polymer based, and you're not talking about substrates and things like that. So yes, at the end of the product's life cycle, it absolutely can be recycled, ground up, and made into a new product. So absolutely.
And I know that was something I heard coming up just recently, Jason, in a conversation we were having internally, that for people designing products at end of life, they don't realize the work that goes into removing a label versus having, say, a label that is fused in for life and it can be recycled. So pretty significant.
Absolutely, and oftentimes we get contacted after a product has been launched, and then there's problems, rather than being designed in the first place. And so, anytime that we can be involved during the design phase of a program, it's best. But yeah, like you say, somebody we were talking to just the other day was referencing the end of life and the trouble that it causes to try to remove things that would be considered a contaminant.
Excellent. So, and as we were talking, Jason, yet another question came up, and the question is, can normal RFID labels, say perhaps with adhesive, be recycled as well? It says such as one with shrink wrap. Maybe you could address that.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of depends on the different case that you're looking at and the different materials that are being used. Sizing is also important, because that's going to change the percentages. And so it just really kind of depends on, some people grind it up and it doesn't necessarily impact them. And then other people choose to remove it. So it just depends on the
and there's a lot of work and time that has to go with that removal
Absolutely.
process versus polymer fusion. No, great questions. That is all the questions that were submitted, but you both have done a wonderful job answering everything that came through, and I think covering all the topics that anyone would want to know about. So great job.
Excellent. Well, thank you everybody who has tuned in this morning or afternoon, depending on where you're located globally. So Jean, thank you for all of your knowledge and for joining us today and telling us a little bit about Mass Group and the software solutions that you provide. So appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Want to be respectful of everybody's time, and have a great day or evening, depending on where you're at. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Jason. Sure.
Bye-bye.